Okay, hi everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComsNetworking.com. Services that hopefully are useful to the global MedComs community, by which I mean anyone working in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and indeed anyone who's interested in joining MedComs, getting a job in MedComs, which is the theme of today. So you will find that we've got a very useful, hopefully, resource at FirstMedCommsJob.com. If you're interested in anything to do with MedComs, you should find lots of useful insights, articles, videos, careers guides, and indeed careers events and so on at FirstMedCommsJob.com. One of the things we're doing at the moment is we're running Zoom webinars, which gives us a great way of reaching lots more people, all of us sitting in the comfort of our home or office. And it means we can not only engage with people all over the place as an audience, but we can get speakers, panelists dialing in from wherever they are as well. So today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Katie and Ellie from Ashfield. And on that note, I'm simply going to hand over to Katie to talk about the Allegro program at Ashfield. And then, as I say, we'll finish with a Q&A session of the presentation. So Katie, over to you.
Well, thanks, Peter. If you just bear with me a second, I will share my screen. I'll get the slides up. So I'm Katie Johnson. I've worked with Ashfield for the last 3.5 years. When we set up Allegro and the Associate Medical Writing, I predominantly help the business recruit for our associate writers. And Ellie.
Yeah, I'm Ellie Thomas. I'm a medical writer. I've been in the company just over 2 years, and I was part of the first ever intake of Allegro. So we'll just tell you a little bit about it today.
Yeah, so this presentation will give you more information on Allegro for those of you who haven't heard of it. In particular, kind of what we do and why we do it. Allegro is our training role for our associate medical writers. So to give you a bit of an overview around how Allegro works, we set up Allegro 2.5 years ago with the aim to attract the best talent in the business, the best communicators into the business. We do this through our assessment centres when we hire new associate writers into the role. So how the programme works then, it starts off with the recruitment phase. So that's kind of the first step in that 12-month plan. We'll begin with the assessment centre days held in our Macclesfield office. If successful, you then join the business and we begin that 2-month training phase, which again is based in our Macclesfield office. After the training phase, there are 2 5-month rotations, and we do these through different agencies across the Ashfield group. We take into account at this point your location preferences, but the purpose of having the 2 agency rotations is to give you a flavour of the different types of work that our different agencies are doing. Then at the end of that 12-month period, we look at a number of things. We look at the business need around what accounts need support for writers in. We look at your preferences in writing style and therapy areas, and we'll also obviously again look at the location element too. So at the end of that 12 months, you're placed into a longer term agency as a medical writer. So that kind of summarises that. There we go. So why do we need Allegro? Allegro, prior to us starting with the first Allegro last year, it took about 6 months to create and plan. Initially, the biggest factor in creating Allegro and bringing in new writers is to address our resource needs. Ashfield is a growing business. In the industry as a whole, there's always a shortage of good quality writers. So primarily it was to help alleviate that need for bringing in writers consistently and regularly. We look for good quality writers. So bringing us on to that is we want all of our writers to have the same opportunities to develop and receive training. And the best way to do that was to standardise the training across the 8 weeks where you join. So we want to ensure that all of our writers can have the confidence to develop during that training phase, but also there's a quality assurance part in our agencies when they're getting new writers coming into rotation, that there's been a good amount of quality training there, and we've already kind of got a good benchmark of quality there. Another reason why we need Allegro is to grow our own talent. So although in Allegro we're bringing people in at an entry level, it's kind of much more than that. When we're bringing people in, we want you to develop into the medical writer and senior medical writers of the future within Ashfield. So there really is more than that 1 year, short-term objective. We're growing our own future pipeline of talent, with the starting phase being through the Allegro programme. So what does Allegro provide for you? So within the programme, there's the fast track element to it. So we're presenting a challenge to get you from associate writer to medical writer in that 1 year period. Throughout that, you've got training and support, as well as career opportunities to develop further than that. So when we recruit, we are looking for people with a life sciences background. We will take anybody with a 2-1 and above in a life sciences degree. Some agencies in the industry are still set on having people with a PhD background, but from our point of view, we're interested in making it a level playing field for entry-level writers coming in the sense that if we believe that you are a strong communicator and that you can write well, we'll provide you with that training support and the opportunities to succeed throughout your medical writing career. There's a highly supportive environment. So throughout your first 8 weeks, you're receiving regular one-to-one feedback and support on all of the projects that you've worked on week by week, so that you're able to see what you've done well, but also how to improve. That then continues through the placements that you do. You are assigned a mentor, there's a buddy program, you've also got your line manager. So throughout your first year, you've got a good support system there. And then you've also got, on the other side of things, the group that you started with. When you join on Allegro, you're essentially in a cohort of colleagues, but who end up being friends, and they'll go into different parts of the business, but you've always got each other to lean upon and to share your experiences there. Quality assurance is also, going back to that point where we will ensure that you are receiving the best quality training from us. And will also play to your individual strengths in medical writing, because there's such a vast amount of account types and therapy areas to be covered. Not everybody will like the same thing. So joining Allegro and the larger Ashfield, agency structure, we can see what your strengths and weaknesses are, and we can also play to that when we're thinking about what agencies might you fit best in. If there's a particular therapy area that you're really interested in, is there an opportunity to put you on those kind of accounts too? So it's kind of a bit more about why it's good for you, but to elaborate more on how the training phase works. So throughout that first 8 weeks, we look at building your core skills as a writer, as well as your soft business skills. So the first 8 weeks of training has a mixture of training sessions, covering off all the main forms of writing styles. It's also got a large proportion of practical work. So off the back of the training sessions, you'll then have practical work to deliver to give you a flavour of what is the content I'll be dealing with in the role. And throughout that first 8 weeks, like I mentioned already, you've got regular one-to-one meetings with your line manager to advise you on what you're doing well and where to improve, so that by the time that you're finishing that and going into the agency placements, you've kind of built your own confidence in, you'll know how to approach briefs in the agency. And through the training that you have, it's actually delivered through a lot of internal trainers, so you're building up a network of people in the agencies, and there are also external trainers that we'll bring in. So by the time you've covered that 8 weeks, you've gone through a variety of therapy areas, and you've kind of got the basics of what the job involves and how to be a successful medical writer. So moving on to the end of the training phase, we look at the benchmark of writing that we would want you to have at that point, and we're looking at then the agencies in the business who have got the right location for you, the right account that you'll suit and succeed in, as well as the business needs. So at this point, there's a conversation around all of those things, and initially you start that first placement. For your first placement, it may be that you're focusing on maybe a publications account, and then onto the second placement, you might be looking at a medical affairs or the different forms of writing styles and accounts, so that at the end of the 12 months, you've covered pretty much the full spectrum of what does a medical writer do. So how successful has the Allegro programme been? So since we started with the first intake, we've hired over 100 new medical writers into the business, which seems like a lot, but every intake on average has around 15 or so people that we'll bring in. The first 4 intakes have now finished the full programme, and they are medical writers out in the agency. The other 3 are still finishing there, somewhere in their first or second rotations. So the success rate that we've had so far is that 90% of our associate medical writers have now graduated into medical writers. When we get to the end of the year, there's no reapplication process. It's a smooth transition from the review that you'll have that will indicate, are you at that medical writer level for promotion when you're going into the agency? And if not, we'll be looking at how to extend the training that you'll receive. It may be that you're nearly there, just about there. It's that you've not had enough exposure in a couple of areas, or you need to improve in some other parts. So then after that, we may build in additional steps to get you to that medical writer level. But so far, 90% of those people who have graduated are in the business, and that's actually increased our talent pool in-house by 50%, which is great. So that kind of shows that there is always that need for great communicators and writers throughout the business. From another aspect, we've had quality of work commented on, that actually now when we're getting writers in, by doing that 8-week training and those placements, you're actually a really well-rounded writer, and you can deliver good quality work, albeit you may have fewer years experience. Development opportunities, that's obviously a given for those on the programme, but outside of that, it's allowed us to develop our other writers and people within the business who are interested in mentoring, who are interested in getting involved in running training sessions, and overall the opinion from internally in the business and externally has been positive. So how has Allegro benefited our staff? I'm going to hand over to Ellie now, who will just run you through her experiences, really.
Yeah, so my background is that I did a bachelor's degree in biomedical science, and I found that when I was doing my degree, they were really sort of pushing us towards lab work, and I did not think that I would enjoy that. I wanted to work in an office environment, I wanted to travel, I wanted to have more of a social side of things. Kind of stumbled across MedComms as a job, ended up applying, I went to the assessment day, kind of realised that this could really be for me. Was successful, was part of the first intake of Allegro, but we before we even started, we had a welcome lunch, we actually went to the Christmas party, so by the time we myself and the 14 other people came to our first day of work, we already knew each other quite well. I'd moved in with 2 of them, we were all living together in Manchester, so it was really nice, a really nice way to come into a business. So we started the training, and then we had
going backwards.
So we had the 8 weeks of training, taking us from basics of what does this person do in the business, what is a manuscript, what is an abstract, what is a poster. We had, like Katie mentioned, we had talks from internal training from all sorts of people in the business, really senior people coming in and chatting away to us, answering all our questions. It wasn't as daunting as you think it would be to speak to someone so senior. Everyone was really, really lovely. And then we finished the training, you start in a first agency, and obviously it's a bit daunting to start with, or it's daunting before you go, and then as soon as you get there, everyone is still so nice. Everyone helps you. Like Katie mentioned, you have a mentor who will help you with all your work. You get face-to-face feedback all the time. You're updated on your progress all the time. And like Katie mentioned, you do 2 different rotations in different kinds of work. So when you come away at the end of your first year, you've done a bit of everything. You've met loads of people. You've created this network. You have an idea of what you enjoy, what you're good at. Some people do travel even in that first year. And then I've now been graduated. I've been a medical writer for 1 year and 2 months. So yeah, I was promoted at the end of the first year, and then since then I've been on quite a few different accounts. I've worked on an oncology account. I've worked in at the moment I work in IBD, done a bit of respiratory, done a bit of all sorts of different things. I've done a secondment. I still have monthly catch-ups with one of the VPs in my agency. I have a manager. I've had a mentor, part of the buddy system. So even when you come out of Allegro, it's very, very supported. It's like Ashfield as a whole is very supportive of you. And for example, I wanted to get experience on a meetings account, so I've gone onto a meetings account. Was meant to be going to Seville in like 2 weeks, but unfortunately coronavirus has meant that's not happening. But in a normal life, you would get to a normal time, you would get to travel quite a bit and experience lots of different things. And if there's something that you want to work on, you're pretty much guaranteed that you will get the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I can't sing praises enough. I've had a great time. Yeah.
So just to go back to kind of why is Allegro a good career move for you, if you're interested in becoming a writer. Over the past 2 years since we've had Allegro set up, it has become a tried and tested model. I can vouch that the training has adapted and changed on the feedback from the guys who've done the programme, also from the business. So it's ever evolving, and we can mould it to meet the demands of the ever-changing business, that is MedComms. And it also gives you that defined development pathway and sense of community, just as Ellie was talking about. When you join an agency, after you've finished that 12-month period, that's your longer term home. But from that point, you'll have a network of people you'll know from your experiences in the placements, as well as people who you started with and where they're up to in the business. So it really does provide the opportunities for you to develop ahead of getting to medical writer, senior medical writer, and the SDs of the future, which is really what we're hoping for. And Allegro gives you that perfect springboard to really start that career path. As MedComms does have a lovely career progression. There's kind of, across all of the agencies, there's kind of always that next promotion to be working towards. Oh, the slide's stuck. But yeah, just to go on as well, a few pictures. Ellie and I can both also vouch that we do have a lot of fun. MedComms as an industry is known as not being strict 9 to 5. If that's the type of job that you want, it may not be the right role. But what we'll say is throughout the roles on Allegro, as well as in the business in general, we do work hard, play hard, without sounding too cringe. But yeah, we do have a laugh. So finally, just to move on to what we look for in our writers when we're recruiting. So we believe that the successful writers should display these attributes. And that's what we're looking for in our assessment centres when we run them. So fundamentally, we're looking for people who have a passion for science. So if you've already got your life sciences background, what we test for on the day is your writing skills. So we want you to have strong writing skills, but we also look at that potential of what can we train, how can we improve your writing skills. We understand that coming into an entry-level job like this, you're not going to have masses of experience outside of the writing that you'll have done in your education, but we want to see that you've got the potential there. Just a couple of the other points as well is we look for people who are organised and adaptable and calm under pressure. MedComms and projects as a medical writer can change at the drop of a hat. You have to be resilient to those changes and be able to be calm under pressure when that happens, and adaptable in the sense that you'll receive a lot of feedback, particularly when you first start writing. So it's good to show that you can adapt to the feedback that you've got, you can improve your writing style. Team working is a massive part of being a medical writer. Everything you do is part of a team, so you succeed as a team, you fail as a team, and that kind of twins in with needing to be a good communicator. If your workload's too busy, don't drown, put your hand up. We'll always have that support system there to share the workload. So yeah, it comes down to being a great team worker and deadline orientated. No matter what type of account it is that you're working on, there will be a deadline, whether it's a meeting that's definitely going ahead on that day, or whether it's a publication submission deadline that isn't going to change whether or not that work's finished. So that's kind of the attributes that we look for. And through the assessment days that we run, we're assessing these skills also against our company values. And yeah, that's kind of all that we look for. So just a final slide before we hand back over to Peter and to open it up for the Q&A session. But if on the back of this presentation you do have any questions, feel free to contact Ellie and I directly on LinkedIn, or if you want specific information about the recruitment process and how to follow up on the back of this, our email address is ahcrecruitment@ashfieldhealthcare.com, and I'll be able to get back in touch with you and help answer any queries there. So that handing back to Peter, if that's okay with you.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, both Katie and Ellie. Thank you very much. That was great. Looking at the Allegro program, what I'll say to people watching us online at the moment, just a reminder: at the bottom of your screen, you have a chat button, a Q&A button. We'd welcome your questions and observations and comments, and we'll weave those into the discussion. Can I just kick off in my usual sort of way? And I'm hoping I'm not asking you to repeat anything you said, but I don't think you did. Can you just give us a sense of the context for Ashfield? I mean, how big is Ashfield? And where are you in the world, sort of thing? Can you just give us the sort of top line?
Ashfield as an organisation is made up of a network of medical communications agencies. We've got about 15 agencies in the group under 3 business units. The majority of the agencies that we have are across the UK and the US. And in total, we've got about 1,200 people in the full AHC business, obviously writers, client services, business support type roles.
Okay, cool. And just to be clear, because we'll get, I'm trying to head off a couple of obvious questions that will come in, I think. Just to be clear, we're talking about the Allegro program. That's for associate medical writers only. Just out of interest, there has been discussion, I know, in the past about extending that training to the account management side. Is that still a under discussion type point?
Still on the cards at the moment, yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, for this discussion, we're talking about associate medical writers. To be clear, as I understand it, if you join the Allegro program, you have to go to Maxfield for 8 weeks.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So anyone coming in as an entry-level writer to Ashfield, who becomes part of the Allegro program, is going to go to Maxfield, and then you go out from there, yeah? In terms of, we've already had a question about international students, someone's in Singapore, Vivek's in Singapore. What happens outside of this country? Are there some sort of, there must be entry routes outside?
Yeah, so as a business, we can hire you if you have full right to work in the UK. We unfortunately don't sponsor visas, but if you do have the ability to relocate to the UK, At this moment in time, Allegro is just UK. So if that's kind of route you were looking for, if you were relocating long term, that's what we've got set out at the moment.
But sorry, maybe I didn't ask that quite. So, in the States, for instance, I mean, presumably there are entry-level writers coming in the States, but not part of the Allegro program.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So Allegro is basically a UK-based program. It's writers. It's Macclesfield for 8 weeks, and then they move over. Okay, all right, I understand that. You made the very clear point that you and this is probably picking up on a couple of questions there. So you made the clear point that you recruit life science graduates. However, you're not too worried about the postgraduate qualifications of PhDs and all the rest of it. So Sam's asking about this. I mean, I think it's worth, as a general point, making the point that it's very competitive to get into MedComms whichever way you try and come in. That's just the way it is, okay? There are agencies you touched on who would be requiring postgraduate qualifications and so on. But you made the very clear point that you're more interested in the individual and life science background, yeah?
Yeah, because coming into the program, regardless of your background, you're going to receive the same 8 weeks of training. So we're testing through the assessment centre that you can write, that you're a good communicator, and that's kind of what we look for to begin with.
Okay, and again, to cut off a question that will come in if we're not careful, if somebody is, I don't know, just more experienced in whatever path of life they're in, they don't come in as a writer or a senior medical writer. Basically, anyone coming to Ashfield into the Allegro program as an associate medical writer, you've got a year's training ahead of you. And then, but having said that, once you get through the training, the pathways can probably differ, and some people will move quicker through the system than others, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all agreeing with that. And still picking up on what Sam's talking about, he's talking about the writing test, and maybe it's not the best way of using as a yardstick sign, but everyone in MedComms is going to use the writing test for writers. It's as simple as that, and people have to sort of accept that and deal with it. People do have very different writing tests. Can you give us a flavour of the sort of writing tests that you use?
So on the assessment days that we run, we do 2 writing tests. We do one focusing on an abstract, and then we do another focusing on writing for a non-scientific audience. So across the 2 tests, we can get an idea of your writing style, which we found really useful, because ultimately not everybody is amazing at writing for technical audiences, and not everyone's amazing at writing for lay audiences. So we do the 2 to see the potential of what you can do well already and where you need improvement.
And it's also as well to show how well you can pick out key scientific information. If you were given a paper or you were given a piece of text, how well can you pick out what's important, as much as it is about how well you write that, it's your understanding as well.
I think that's quite an important point. I was going to make it myself. It's often missed that you're not just looking at the ability to put a sentence together, however that's important, but you're looking for people who can get the fact that there's a message in there. And it's not so much the details of the experiment, it's what the benefit is or the result is. And you're looking for people who can pick that up and communicate that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And what sort of, I mean, what am I trying to say? So I'm still trying to sort of pick up or follow Sam's sort of logic and point. I mean, what can people do that's going to put them in a better position to pass your test, basically? Are there courses, are there things that you're looking for, are there things they can do which will prepare them better for coming into MedComms generally, and specifically the Allegro program?
It's a tough one, because there are no accreditations or qualifications that people can do to say that they are a good, a medical writer. But we found in the past people may have had blogs, in their spare time. Doesn't have to be science related. But we look at, say, your CV and cover letter to see what interests you. Are you taking part in any, like pint of science stuff, things through your education that indicates that you are interested in science communications. But there isn't anything, if you don't have that, we wouldn't discount you. If your CV reads well and we've had a good conversation with you, there's no right or wrong background to have had to get in the door.
Yeah, I think as a general comment, I mean, there isn't a lot out there that you can point people at in terms of courses or whatever. I mean, there are some. Maybe at the moment there's starting to be a couple more sort of online courses, or the MWA courses, or whatever. I mean, it's but there's no sort of take this course and you're going to be suddenly in in the front of the queue. I mean, I might as well put my own plug in. You know, again, FirstMedCommsJob is providing a lot of insight. We run courses. We are running a regular London course, which is about medical writing. NetworkPharma TV's got videos about writing and so on. But I think it's fair to say, and I always say this to people, so I hope it's fair to say, you know, as an agency, you're not looking for people at entry level who are a medical writer. You're looking for people with the attributes and the interest and the ability, but you're quite fussy, and all the agencies are quite fussy. So they've got to understand there's a competitive thing here. But again, to put it in context, and going back to where I started, you know, you've got 1,200, 1,500 people or something, lots of offices, 100 over a couple of years, 100 new writers over a couple of years is quite a big number actually for the business that we're in. And reflects the size of the organisation, and it's a whole different level to other agencies who are maybe taking in, you know, maybe only ones or twos, or maybe 15, 20 sort of thing. So I wanted just to make that point that Ashfield is quite a big operation, and those are quite big numbers that you're talking about there. Yeah. A couple of quick questions here, just bouncing around a bit. But Fiona's asking how frequent are the recruitment drives? Is it still a quarterly basis? I think it probably is.
Yeah. So we've just run an assessment day. We'll be recruiting again in June for jobs to start in August, and then after that it will be kind of autumn, winter, then spring next year. That's kind of how we run it currently.
Okay, and someone's asking here, should I apply now? He, I don't know, anonymous, whilst I'm in year 2 of biomedicine, or apply after I graduate?
It's totally up to you. When we have people who are still in education and they apply, we kind of keep your contact details, and we'll tell you about the intakes around the time that you're graduating. Alternatively, you could wait to see nearer the time when you're finishing your exams, and when you think about when you want to actually start working, to get in touch then and see what intakes are coming up around that time frame.
And the problem is there's no magic answer to this, is there? I mean, with a program like yours, there's a sense that's, you know, let's wait till nearer the time when I'm going to be in a position to do something. But as a general comment, again, people applying for jobs in MedComms, you know, very often are caught up, like in the PhD type situation where you're writing up a PhD. Do I apply while I'm writing up or at the end? I mean, there's no absolute magic answer to this. I think to some extent you just have to sort of try and see where you end up, sort of thing. I mean, a lot of people in MedComms understand the processes though, and understand that if you're writing up a PhD, it'll take a bit of time. And there's, you know, they're not going to just go no because you've got to write it up. There's quite a lot of understanding of that sort of thing. Yeah. There was a comment, I was going to follow Fiona for the moment here, in terms of this idea that they're coming onto this course in, as it were, training program based in Macclesfield. What sort of support do you give in terms of relocation and so on? And then I guess part of the question is not just, in fact, it is part of the question, not just about Macclesfield, but if you're then going to go to wherever it is, London or wherever, how much support do you give in terms of relocation and so on?
So in terms of, if you were relocating just for those 8 weeks, we contribute financially on top of your salary, but we don't say find an accommodation for you. We've had so many people in the past that have done this though, that we've now got a bank of landlords and people in the local area that have said, you know, feel free to give out this spareroom.com link or this Airbnb link. So we've kind of, over the past couple of years, got an idea on the price, how easy it is to pick up a short-term let, but fundamentally you'd have to organise that yourself. But we do contribute financially because we're understanding that you've probably got rent or mortgage to pay at home whilst you're stopping somewhere else for 8 weeks.
Yeah, okay. And Alex, are there any opportunities to work in London? So I guess the simple answer is yes, but just remind us where the offices are in the UK, say London, down here in Oxford.
Yeah, so we've got London, there's Whitney near to Oxford, we have Maidenhead, and then further up north we've got Macclesfield, Manchester and Glasgow.
Glasgow's the ones, excellent, okay. Again, I'm picking up on some of these questions. Is it accredited in any way? That's possibly an interesting question, and I'm going to preempt it and go, I assume it's not accredited in any way. But there's a question across MedComms, and maybe it's particularly at the moment, people are asking these questions in terms of how, you know, if one, I know the idea is you take somebody and you train them, you don't want them to leave, but, you know, is there any sort of transferable type qualifications here if they go through your program? Is it? This is a slightly different question, but how transferable is that if needed, or do you not just look at it like that? You just don't think of it in that way?
No, it's it's not, but in my experience, as soon as you've got a foot in the door with MedComms, you are so desirable to recruiters and other companies that as soon as you've got any experience, that kind of speaks for itself. Especially if you were to complete Allegro and you're then a medical writer, you are a medical writer, and that, like Katie touched on earlier, medical writers are so in demand all of the time in every MedComms company. Everyone's trying to hire, so it's not accredited per se, but having that on your CV sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah. And going through a formalised training program just brings with it lots of benefits, basically, the truth about having, and again, just within that training program, again, just to be clear on this, and there's a formal side of it, there's lecture, you're talking about presentations and, you know, and practical activities and so on. Is that all in-house, or are you putting people on external courses? I'm still just thinking about the first year at the moment. Are people going out on external courses? Is it a lot of work on the job training?
Yeah,
it's a mixture of this stuff.
All in-house. The first 8 weeks is kind of where you get your most classroom style training, and that's delivered by internal people, and then we get some external trainers as well. You still have training sessions to go on throughout the placements that you're in, but kind of once you're out in agency and you've finished Allegro, we've got the Ashfield Academy, which in itself is a big training team that will deliver additional courses, kind of covering a whole host of topics that you would then do to develop your skills after finishing Allegro.
Okay, cool. So let's just touch on this briefly, because again, it's been asked in the question. So having got yourself, Ellie, you've achieved your graduation, whatever, however you describe it, from the program. From then on, there's a continuous, obviously, a training program, and you're calling it the Academy, yeah?
Yeah.
So again, is that a mix of internal, external, working on the job and so on? And are there levels? Do you go through? Do you get badges? I don't know how you. I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of how somebody going through that program knows that they're achieving and they're moving up and so on.
You kind of, not per se, but you would work with your manager. You would speak through all of the available courses, and you would say what you felt would benefit you, and they would kind of put you forward for that. So I had some critical thinking training a while ago by an external person. I've got a statistics training day coming up later on this month. So it's not sort of how you said, like a badge system or whatever. It's like what you think you would benefit from the most, and there's no sort of I don't think your manager would ever turn around and say you couldn't do it.
Okay, and there's not. I mean, obviously there's a pathway ahead of you. Medical writer, what comes next? Senior medical writer, principal medical writer, wherever it goes. Is there a formal way of a formal system for you have to have achieved so much to go up to the next level, or you have to have been here X years, or is it much more fluid than that?
More fluid. We don't benchmark on years experience. We find that a bit outdated. We kind of go on the skills that you're displaying. So as soon as you're in your medical writer role, you're thinking about what objectives do I need to set over the next 12, however many months, to get to senior writer. And a lot of that comes down to getting more exposure in different areas, taking on more responsibility and ownership of projects, getting involved with reviewing more junior people, junior writers' work. So there's all these things that you're aware of that you need to have experience in to get to that next promotion. But I'd say MedComms as an industry, because there's such a clear and defined path, as soon as you're at one level, you're kind of thinking about, right, what do I need to do to get to the next promotion? And you kind of always having reviews. At Ashfield, you have reviews twice a year to assess kind of what are your short-term objectives, how have you met them, how far are you off that next promotion.
Right. Okay. So that's again, I'm trying to think about people coming from academia or something where this is a very different system. So you've got. I think the thing I hope we're emphasising. The point is you're part of a team. You're getting support all around you. You're not left on your own to do the work. There's a constant sort of development process going on. You've got your, I think you said 6 monthly type review meetings where you can assess what you've been doing and what you're doing next, and the whole thing develops around that in an effective way. Yeah. Just out of interest. Can I ask this? I'm going to ask this. I think it was 90% of people sort of get to the end of this. Just so a few drop out. Yeah. What sort of things maybe, why do they drop out? Where do they go next? What goes?
how many people make
medical
writing?
writing? Yeah, so out of the other 10%, it may be that they haven't met the criteria to get that medical writer promotion at 12 months. It's not necessarily that they've left the business. It may just be that they've got like a 3-month, plan of action to get experience in the things that they had in
Okay, so sorry. Okay, so pinning you down slightly, and not wanting to make you too uncomfortable here, but some people presumably don't get through the whole thing because they just go, look, this isn't for me. Because until you get into this business, you don't really know, do you? I just wondered whether you got any sense of maybe an academic comes in, thinks this isn't for me, and it goes back to academia, or where they might go, what might happen to them, or also maybe that's what you just touched on. If people get towards the end of this and go, I don't want to be a medical writer, but this is a big enough business, I can go into account management or something like that. I mean, all those options are there basically.
So throughout the first 8 weeks, you obviously got a lot of one-to-one coaching and mentoring. Throughout the full year itself, you've got several check-in points. So sometimes it just isn't the right job for people. In some cases, people have gone to back into the routes that they had done, or they've been absorbed into other roles in the business that much better suit them. So we've had instances of that, but because there's that many check-in points, if you're not quite at medical writer promotion level at the end of 12 months, it's not going to be a shock. You'll be aware of that. So yeah, that's kind of what the other 10% have been.
Okay. And I don't want to dwell on that. I mean, at the end of the day, frankly, you've got a big program and lots of people going through it successfully. I mean, apart from anything else, I guess that means, or reinforces the need to be fussy at the beginning. And that's why you're fussy at the beginning, because you want to get people on and then you don't want to lose them. And that seems to be working. Yeah. So I guess good on all counts there. Yeah. What I think we should do, because we are, as usual, I'm over my time. So what I'd like to do is wrap this up. Just as a sort of a final comment again, I know you've said this before, but just a final comment again, if people are interested, and I was very keen with this particular discussion that we focus on that Allegro program. So there's probably other questions and so on. But if anyone wants to follow up about the Allegro program, just give us the email address again so that people can sort of ping you a note. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ahcrecruitment@ashfieldhealthcare.com.
Excellent. Okay. And both of you, I know, are very happy for people to contact you via LinkedIn and so on. So look, guys, I'm going to wrap this up for the moment. Those of you watching us online, please don't rush away if you don't have to, because we will carry on talking and there are more questions we can cover off here. But for those of you watching the video, thanks very much for watching. Do follow up with Katie and Ellie. And just for a final plug, as it were, from my point of view, come to MedComsNetworking.com. You'll find lots of information about MedComms. If you're specifically looking for a job, come to FirstMedCommsJob.com, where you'll find loads of information, guidance, insight, and so on. The videos, along with lots of other videos, are on NetworkPharma TV, where you'll find more than 200 videos now. So there's lots of good information out there, all freely accessible. And I'm always very happy to hear from anybody, and I will try and help where I can. So thank you very much, everybody. I ask everybody to wave now while I turn the recording off. So you say wave and give a little wave. Bye-bye. Cheers. Thank you very much.